went back to America feeling very, very chagrined, very annoyed that they didn't get the exposure they wanted. Was a victim of the media. She was a master of the media and a master of media manipulation.
Tom Bauer just said something about Harry and Meghan's kids that's got the entire internet losing it. We're not talking about another palace feud or some Netflix drama here. This one's different. It cuts straight to the core of everything they've built. Patterns that don't add up. Timelines that have felt off for years. Questions that just won't go away no matter how hard they try to ignore them. If what's coming out now is actually real, then the entire story Harry and Meghan have been selling us collapses. The fairy tale ends. And honestly, what's being whispered right now about Archie and Lilibet might be the one thing they can't spin their way out of. This isn't just royal gossip anymore. This hits way deeper than that. Because Tom Bauer, the man who spent his entire career exposing people who don't want to be written about, just pulled back the curtain on something they've been desperately trying to keep hidden. And what he's revealed raises questions about money, about legitimacy, about whether the story we've been told was ever really the truth. Here's the thing that Tom Bauer keeps pointing out, and it's something people need to understand. Harry and Meghan need money. They need it now more than ever. And there's literally no other source of income coming in. Nothing. Those Netflix deals and book contracts, that's all they've got. That's it. Everything runs on keeping those deals alive. Tom Bauer has been saying this for years now, and the guy knows what he's doing. He's spent his career choosing people who don't want to be written about, people whose lives are shrouded in mystery, people who want to hide their secrets. And he just loves digging away to find out what they don't want us to know. When Meghan came along, he thought the same thing. This is fascinating. How's this going to play out? And what he found is pretty simple according to him. Harry and Meghan are stuck. They're tied to Netflix. They're tied to their books. All the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way they can earn their money. Here's what makes it worse, according to Bauer's analysis. If they give up both the Netflix deal and the book deal, they won't be living in a Montecito mansion. They'd more likely be living somewhere in downtown LA in something way smaller. That's their problem right there. They're stuck now, completely stuck, and they know it. Reports suggest they signed away their credibility, signed away their dignity. That's just the reality of what happened. When you need the money that badly, when there's nothing else bringing cash in, you do what you have to do. Even if it means putting everything out there for public consumption. Even if it means taking hit after hit in the media. Because what choice is there? Walk away from the deals and lose everything. The mansion, the lifestyle, all of it depends on those contracts staying active. So they keep going. They keep producing content. They keep sharing their story piece by piece, chapter by chapter. Not because they necessarily want to at this point, according to observers, but because they have to. Tom Bauer saw this coming. He could tell from the beginning that money was going to be the driving force behind everything they did. And according to him, Meghan's always been money-obsessed. That's why she married Prince Harry in the first place, he claims. The great surprise and disappointment for her was discovering that Prince Harry had very little money. She imagined he'd be worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, and now she's having to make up for it. That's the trap there in according to this narrative. Get this. The pregnancy photos never really made sense according to royal watchers. Like from the beginning, something felt off about them. They looked staged in a way that other royal pregnancies just don't. Everything was so controlled, so carefully put together that it made people start asking questions. And once you notice it, you can't really unsee it. The timelines were fuzzy too. Dates didn't line up the way they should have. Things jumped around in ways that felt weird. And it wasn't just one or two people noticing this. It was enough people that it became a thing, something people started talking about openly. Because when you compare it to how other royals handle pregnancies, the difference is pretty stark. Where were the hospital pictures? That's what people kept asking. With William and Kate, we saw everything. The standard birth announcements, the photos outside the hospital, the normal stuff that comes with royal babies. It's tradition. It's what people expect. But with Harry and Meghan, nothing. No hospital shots, no standard announcements, none of the usual protocol that's been followed for generations. And that absence stood out because royals don't usually break from tradition without a reason. So when they did, people wondered why. What was different about this situation that required such a departure from the norm? Nobody had a clear answer. And that lack of clarity just fed more questions. Everything about their family presentation felt too polished, too perfect, too carefully curated according to critics. It's like every photo, every announcement, every piece of information that came out was filtered through multiple layers of control. And when things feel that staged, that manufactured, people naturally start to wonder what's being covered up. Tom Bauer ran into this firsthand when he was researching for his book. He spoke to very few friends of Meghan because she put a stop to it, he claims. She made it clear that anyone talking to him was off limits. He sent off dozens of emails to her friends trying to get information, trying to understand her story better, and most of them didn't even reply. That's not normal according to Bauer. That level of control, that kind of lockdown on information, it tells its own story. Privacy is one thing, total information blackout is another. When you shut down every avenue of conversation, when you block everyone from saying anything, it doesn't make people less curious. It makes them more curious. It makes them think there's something worth hiding. Listen, here's what's really striking about this whole situation. William and Kate's kids are everywhere. You see them with Charles, with Camilla, with the whole royal family all the time. Birthday posts, family gatherings, normal grandparent moments. It's just standard stuff that happens when you're part of that family. The photos are out there, the connections are visible, and nobody questions it because that's how royal families typically operate. But Archie and Lilibet, almost nothing according to observers. There are barely any photos of them with the senior royals. No cozy moments with their grandfather Charles. No bonding time with Camilla. No pictures that show them being embraced by the wider royal family the way William and Kate's children are. And that gap, that absence of normal family interaction, it's noticeable. Really noticeable. People started asking if it's just a coincidence, or if there's something else going on, because the contrast is so stark that it's hard to ignore. The palace hasn't put out the usual birthday greetings for Archie and Lilibet. There haven't been the standard public acknowledgements that typically come with royal grandchildren. Even basic things that are pretty much routine for everyone else in the family, they're just not happening for Harry and Meghan's kids. Compare that to how things work for William and Kate. Their children get photographed with Charles and Camilla regularly. There are plenty of family moments on record, lots of bonding shots that show them being part of the firm. It's documented. It's visible. It's normal. But when it comes to Harry and Meghan's children, that documentation doesn't exist. The visibility isn't there. And the normalcy that should come with being royal grandchildren is completely absent. Observers started wondering if the palace has deliberately kept its distance, not as punishment necessarily, but maybe as something else. Maybe as protection. There's this theory making the rounds that the distance isn't about anger or family feuds. It's about the monarchy insulating itself from something they feared could one day erupt into a major problem. If that's true, if the palace saw this coming somehow, then they've been playing the long game according to this speculation. Keeping Archie and Lilibet at arm's length means keeping the institution safe from whatever questions might eventually surface. Now here's where things get really complicated according to analysts. What if surrogacy wasn't just about privacy? What if it wasn't just a medical choice that Harry and Meghan made privately and wanted to keep to themselves? What if there's actually more to the story about who these kids are biologically? Because that's the question that's starting to surface in discussions, and it's not going away quietly. For regular families, none of this would matter. How you have kids, whether through surrogacy or any other method, that's your business. Nobody else needs to know, and nobody else should have a say in it. But Harry and Meghan aren't a regular family. They're royals. And for royals, bloodline isn't just some personal detail you can keep private according to royal protocol experts. It's everything. It's literally what the entire system runs on. The monarchy operates on legitimacy. It operates on knowing exactly who's who in the family tree, on being able to trace bloodlines back through generations. That's not just tradition or old-fashioned thinking. That's the foundation of how the crown works. You can't have a monarchy if you can't verify who actually belongs in the line of succession. The whole thing falls apart without that certainty. So if surrogacy was involved, and if there were questions about biological connection, meaning the ties aren't what Harry and Meghan have been claiming. Then we're not talking about a privacy issue anymore, according to constitutional experts. We're talking about something that strikes at the very core of what the monarchy represents. We're talking about legitimacy being called into question. And that's not something the crown can just brush aside or ignore. This isn't just about Harry and Meghan's reputation. This isn't just about whether people believe their story or trust them. This is about the line of succession itself. This is about whether Archie and Lilibet actually belong in that line at all according to these theories. And if they don't, if the biological ties aren't what's been presented, then every decision about titles, about their place in royal history, about their future role in the family, gets thrown into chaos. The crown thrives on stability. It thrives on clear, unquestionable bloodlines that nobody can dispute. When those lines start to blur, when questions arise about who's actually related to whom, the entire institution becomes vulnerable. Remember when Meghan sat down with Oprah and talked about skin color concerns? That whole conversation that blew up everywhere. Turns out the real story behind that moment is completely different from what got sold to the world according to Tom Bower. Here's what actually went down based on what he uncovered. This was very early on in Harry and Meghan's relationship, really early. This conversation happened long before their engagement was even announced, way before they got married, obviously before she was pregnant with anything. Harry was sitting in Clarence's house with his father, who was Prince Charles at the time, and Camilla's there too. They're just talking, having a normal family conversation about Harry's new relationship and where it might be headed. And at some point, according to Bower's sources, Camilla makes this lighthearted comment. She says something like, "Well, any child you'll have will probably have brown skin and ginger hair." That's it. That's what was said according to this account. And everyone laughed, including Harry. They all laughed because it wasn't meant as anything serious or concerning. It was just one of those things people say when someone close to them is in a relationship. You imagine what their kids might look like. You wonder about the combination of features. It's normal curiosity. The comment wasn't said with any concern behind it according to these sources. Nobody in that room was worried about skin color or thought it mattered in any meaningful way. It was casual, lighthearted, the kind of remark that gets made and forgotten about in normal family conversations. But somewhere along the way, that moment got transformed into something completely different. It became a story about concerns, about worries, about the royal family being obsessed with how dark the baby would be. And that's not what happened according to Tom Bower's version of events, which he says came from people close to the situation. If you go back and watch that Oprah interview, really watch it closely, you can see something interesting in Meghan's body language according to observers. During that part, she's uncomfortable. You can see it in how she moves, how she phrases things. Tom Bower pointed this out specifically. The body language showed her discomfort as she dug deeper into her own narrative, he claims. Harry's not doing well according to reports coming out of Montecito, like actually not doing well at all. And it's not subtle. You can see it in everything that's been coming out about how he's been handling all of this. Sources describe the guy as falling apart, and it's pretty clear that the pressure is getting to him in ways he can't control anymore. Reports paint a really messy picture of what's going on behind closed doors. Harry's pacing rooms constantly. He's snapping at staff over small things. He's glued to every headline, every article, every comment section. He's spiraling under the weight of all these whispers and accusations, according to insiders. And the man who built his entire post-royal brand on mental health awareness is now reportedly losing his grip on his own peace of mind. The irony of that is hard to miss. Sources describe him as obsessed, almost to the point of being paranoid. He's not just reading the occasional article, he's reportedly consuming everything. Articles, gossip columns, YouTube videos, every timeline from the pregnancies, every allegation Tom Bower's put on the table. Friends say he's restless. He can't sit still. He's pacing around the house, lashing out at people around him, ranting, barely sleeping at night. And these are people who know him according to reports, who have been around him, who can see the difference between how he used to be and what he's become now. His old military buddies, the ones who admired his bravery and looked up to him during his service days, have reportedly distanced themselves. Sources close to him say he's unpredictable now. He bounces between angry explosions, where he lashes out at everyone, and these moments of eerie silence, where he just shuts down completely. Fatherhood has always been his redemption arc, according to his own statements. That was his way out of all the mess. His reason for everything he's done since leaving royal life. Being a dad was supposed to save him, ground him, give him purpose beyond all the palace drama and media attention. But now even that's being questioned by critics. And that kind of question doesn't just bruise an image, according to analysts. It destroys an identity. Meghan's handling all of this totally differently, according to observers. She's not falling apart like Harry reportedly is. She's taking the colder route, the more calculated approach. There are no emotional outbursts, no public breakdowns, no signs that any of this is getting to her the way it's clearly getting to him. She's just working the angles according to those familiar with the situation, trying to shut the story down from every direction she can think of. But here's the problem with that strategy. The harder she pushes back, the louder everything gets. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Every move she makes to control the narrative, every attempt to silence the questions, it just makes people more convinced there's something worth hiding, according to public perception. Remember those pregnancy photos? The ones that always felt strangely staged. People are going back through them now with a different eye. The timelines that never quite added up, the dates that jumped around in ways that didn't make sense, the lack of hospital pictures or normal birth announcements that other royals always do. Everything about how they presented their family always felt just a little too polished, a little too controlled, a little too perfect, according to critics. And when things feel that staged, when every detail seems manufactured and carefully curated, people naturally start to wonder what's being covered up. Critics are saying they had every chance to clear things up years ago. They could have been transparent from the start. They could have done things the normal way. But instead, they doubled down on secrecy, according to this view. And that secrecy is now backfiring. The calls for DNA testing have become deafening, according to social media trends. What started as quiet whispers on forums and comment sections has exploded into trending hashtags, primetime news debates, panel shows where experts dissect every photo and timeline. Social media is absolutely flooded with people all saying the same thing. If Meghan and Harry are being honest, if there's nothing questionable about Archie and Lilibet's origins, then why not just take the test and shut this all down? Why not end the speculation once and for all? Their refusal to do that, their complete unwillingness to even acknowledge that it's being discussed, it's only giving oxygen to the fire, according to PR analysts. From a PR perspective, this is an absolute nightmare because the Sussex brand, everything they've built since leaving royal life, was all constructed around the image of the perfect modern family. The mansion in sunny Montecito, the polished Netflix documentary series, all those speeches about love and family and breaking cycles. Every bit of it was carefully crafted to present this picture of stability and authenticity. But now that picture is cracking, according to observers. And these aren't just surface cracks that can be covered up with another carefully staged photo shoot or glossy interview. These are deep structural cracks running through the entire foundation of their story. They had countless opportunities to shut this down early, according to critics. They could have released documentation when the first questions came up. They could have offered real transparency instead of vague statements. They could have clarified the strange inconsistencies. Instead, they chose silence, or when they did respond, they offered vague answers that only raised more questions. So here we are. The fairy tale that Harry and Meghan spent years building piece by piece is reportedly falling apart. The story they sold to the world. The brave prince escaping with his modern duchess to build a fresh start outside the palace walls. It's all crumbling under the weight of secrecy, according to this narrative. In the end, it might actually come down to one defining choice, according to analysts. Agree to transparency or don't. That's really what it boils down to at this point. One path could finally silence the critics, give them a chance to reclaim whatever credibility they have left. The other path, the one they seem to be choosing by doing nothing, guarantees that suspicion follows them forever, according to public perception. There's no middle ground here. There's no waiting it out until people forget and move on. Because questions about bloodlines, they don't just vanish into thin air. They linger, they fester, they become part of the permanent record. Harry gambled everything on this narrative of freedom and honesty. He built his entire post-royal identity around breaking free from palace constraints and living authentically. But now that narrative is being torn apart by the very things he said he was fighting against according to observers. Secrecy, silence, questions that won't go away no matter how hard you try to ignore them. And at the center of it all, there's one question that refuses to disappear. Who really are Archie and Lilibet? It's a simple question. It shouldn't be complicated to answer. But the fact that it remains unanswered, the fact that Harry and Meghan won't address it directly according to critics, that tells its own story. Because if the answer was straightforward, if there was nothing to hide, this would have been dealt with a long time ago according to this view. These questions aren't fading. They're not going away. They're growing louder with every passing day that goes by without answers. And unless something major changes, unless answers actually come out in a way that settles this once and for all, these questions will reportedly haunt them forever.